We are finally bridging the gap between static boundaries and truly seamless reactive universes. You know the kind. The one where your journey never stops, never pauses, never hits a loading screen. One in which your presence in the world leaves a visible and notable mark, even if that mark is just the trash you leave behind. You know who you are. Now we are finally seeing the transition from traditional server architecture, and just like your favourite Pokemon evolution, it's getting upgraded and shiny. Have you ever been kicked from a queue, split from your friends mid-battle, or been unable to join friends and family because you picked the wrong server when starting a new game? This one's for you guys. Today we're talking about dynamic server meshing. What is it? Why is it taking so long? And why fundamentally it changes how we experience online games and digital worlds, and not just in Star Citizen, but potentially all online massively multiplayer games everywhere. Let's start at the start. We all know that frustration. You log into your favourite online game. It's peak hours. You hit a queue. You wait 8 minutes and you finally get in and you're on shard 14 of 40, a sliver of a world that was supposed to feel infinite. Your friends are on shard 15. You can't see each other. You can't fight the same battles. Your goal of sharing a story and a world is fractured before it even begins. This is a form of instancing, something we'll be talking about in a new video shortly. And for 25 years, it's been a dirty secret of online gaming. When a zone gets too crowded, the server quietly forks reality. It clones the space and information, splitting the population and pretends like nothing's happened. From the outside, it looks seamless. From the inside, it's a bit of a trick. Depending on its implementation, it can be really difficult to spot while playing the game. Developers maintain the same chat, world notifications, so everything feels all together, when in reality, you're not. Techniques like this are not lazy or a cheap way out of a bigger problem either. It's been a 100% necessary feature in online game design. A single server machine has hard limits. A ceiling on how many objects it can simulate, how many player and physics interactions it can process, how many players it can track. All of this is done in real time. Push past that ceiling and the simulation starts to break. In the case of Star Citizen, ships start rubber banding, players teleport, the laws of the universe as we know it start to contradict, and we get, in the immortal words of Bill Murray,
human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Star Citizen was designed from the ground up to eventually discard this old school way of populating space, with a single goal of one shared universe, thousands of players in a single physical space, same economy, same consequences. However, that design goal is fundamentally incompatible with traditional instancing. To fix this, Cloud Imperium games had to invent something new, something that could spread a single coherent simulation across multiple server machines, instances, and shards without the players ever seeing the join. That solution is dynamic server meshing. As of June 2026, with static server meshing and the quasi-server meshing now in the PU, we are seeing the beginnings of this new breakthrough. Server numbers are up to 800 players, pushing far beyond the legacy player caps that define previous generations of online worlds. 800 seems a lot, as players can certainly see the difference between now and the old days of 20 players or less. The goal, however, with the introduction of dynamic server meshing, is to ultimately allow thousands of players to exist in the same server with the stated target of 10,000 players or more. To understand why dynamic server meshing is such a big deal, you first need to understand what static server meshing does, and potentially where it falls short. With static server meshing, one of the best ways to think about it is Stanton. The star system is divided into fixed zones: Hurston and its orbits, Microtech and its moons, the asteroid belts, each zone permanently assigned to a dedicated server. Server A handles this region while Server B handles another. The lines on the map do not move. This is already a massive leap forward. Instead of one server choking on the entire universe, you now have a team of servers all sharing the load. With static server meshing, Star Citizen in Alpha 4.0 supported shards of more than 500 players, a number that would have been unthinkable on legacy architecture. One of the shortfalls, however, as with any server technology, is load never evenly distributes. On a Friday night, 500 players might converge on one space station for a major event, and a single server responsible for that region then buckles as it can't handle the load, while 3 other servers sit idly by. Static server meshing is unable to adapt on the fly. The boundaries don't flex, and eventually this load causes desync, and as the task calls to the server for instruction or information back up, this eventually results in some of the more annoying bugs we hear players screaming constantly for fixes for, and they're often cited when comparing the game as some kind of scam. At its core, most of these problems stem from inflexible server technology routed to old hardware and system designs. Dynamic server meshing is able to get around this inflexibility by making the boundaries fluid, or at the very least flexible. The system constantly monitors where players are concentrated, and it shifts the jurisdiction in real time. If 1,000 players suddenly pour into one sector, the infrastructure spins up additional resources and transfers authority over to that region seamlessly. Mid-game, no loading screens, and no visible disruption to the players. At least that's the goal. And the technology that makes all this possible is called the Entity Graph, CIG's distributed database that tracks every object, ship, player, physics entity in the simulation. When all authority over a region transfers from one server to another, it's the Entity Graph that provides a consistent snapshot of reality. Neither server gets confused about what state is true, and the players remain blissfully unaware of the changes behind the scenes. Dynamic meshing sounds elegant in concept. The reality of its implementation is a nightmare, and CIG's engineers have been refreshingly honest about that. It's one of the reasons it's taking so long. Let me try and put it into words. Imagine you're flying a ship at 800 meters per second towards the edge of a server zone or boundary. At the exact millisecond that the authority is to change over because you're swapping regions and it's all meant to be transferred to a new server, you fire a missile. Which one of the servers or instances owns that missile? Which server resolves the impact? What happens to the handoff if it takes 40 milliseconds but the missile travels at 32 meters in that window? Does the physics calculation run twice, once on each server? Does it run at all? Can you even see the missile or the target across the server's edge? That's just one edge case. However, at the scale of Star Citizen, with the proposed and current player numbers, projectiles, ships, NPC AI, cargo containers, and atmospheric physics, not to mention planets, landing zones, events, dungeon-style instances, all of this simultaneously running through a dynamically shifting mesh. In that case, the likelihood of these edge cases becomes a bit of a default state, with possibly thousands of changes per moment of play across even just one of the current 3 star systems and 34 explorable planets and moons. The system CIG built to handle all this nonsense is called the replication layer. It's a custom middleware that sits between game servers, and it manages the state synchronization across the entire mesh. It's had to be rebuilt multiple times to handle physics contradictions, ghost objects, and duplicate entity states, without creating bugs that end up being visible to the player. Again, it's a very complex series of technologies that need to link together that is at the beating heart of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Getting this server technology right is one of the reasons it's taken such a long time for the development of both games. The developers at CIG's approach has been a bit methodical. They prove each layer before building upon the next. Object containers, then PES, then static meshing. All this established multiple servers that can share one universe. Then we had the quasi-dynamic load balancing, finally letting the system intelligently redistribute pressure between fixed zones. Next, fingers crossed, will be the full dynamic authority shifting. Any boundary, any time, zero disruption, invisible to the player in the moment-to-moment gameplay. Internal testing in early 2026 was focused specifically on the seamless entity handoffs, the moment a physical object mid-flight or combat passes from one server jurisdiction to another, like I mentioned before, with these tests resulting in one of the biggest leaps forward in gaming technology in the last 2 decades. But that's enough about engineering talk. What's it actually going to mean for the game? The most immediate impact is raw scale. With true dynamic meshing, player cap on a single shard is no longer a fixed ceiling. It can move, bend, buckle, and adjust. We can finally retire the current, more traditional method of player handling, finally allowing such things as grand scale player battles that previously either would not have worked at all, or would have been split up into disconnected or instances, or would have completely buckled the servers. Right now in 4.8.1 we are directly seeing the fruits of this labour, as we now have the introduction of the strike group content. Persistence is another thing we can see benefiting from dynamic server meshing. Star Citizen's core promise is that your actions leave permanent marks on the universe. You destroy a refinery, it stays destroyed. Unless somebody rebuilds it. A blockade is established, it can reshape trade routes for days. Deep persistence only works if the simulation is genuinely unified. Dynamic server meshing is what makes that unified system trustworthy at the scale of the game, while allowing enough player connections and contributions to impact the world around us like no other game did before that. So to summarize, Every online game with meaningful multiplayer is dealing with the same fundamental constraint. Hardware is finite, players are not. The solutions built over the past 25 years, the likes of instancing, sharding, phasing, mega servers with visible caps, or splitting player bases over geography or who you can see based on your IP and ping, it's all just workarounds. They accept the limitations and then hide it as gracefully as they possibly can. What CIG has been building to is a genuine attempt to eliminate those constraints found with legacy servers, systems, hardware, and architecture. As the artists of this change, Cloud Imperium Games, and the new way they've approached this old problem via the replication layer, entity graph, and dynamic authority handoff systems. At the very least, it's a fantastic proof of concept for a new generation of online worlds, one I hope that many games and game developers take notice of, and it's something we can reap the benefits of. We're seeing cloud computing costs falling steadily over the last few years. Latency between data centers has been shrinking with edge infrastructure investments and faster internet speeds worldwide. The economics that made dynamic server scaling impractical in 2019 are at this point all but evaporate. More and more games and software designers will adopt this and similar technology, expanding our online worlds and experiences, hopefully for years to come. We may one day look back smiling at this milestone, one persistent universe, no definable player cap, no loading screens, as a moment where the post-shard era of online gaming officially began. Static meshing gave us a unified universe. Quasi-dynamic load balancing gave us intelligent infrastructure, and full dynamic server meshing will give us something the medium hasn't generally seen before. It'll give us worlds that breathe, worlds that scale, worlds without seams, because it no longer needs them. Whether you've been backing this project since Kickstarter or you're watching this for the first time, the loading screen is dead, and what comes next is going to be unlike anything we've seen before. If you like what you've seen, subscribe. We have a new video coming out each week. Then drop a comment below, let me know any features you're looking forward to or you'd like me to have a chat about, and I'll see you in the next video. Hooroo!